You and I both know it's incredibly hard to take your dogs out for a bathroom break if you're in the middle of a snowstorm, especially when that snowstorm is not just bringing snow, but also the slush and the ice and that mix of ice and snow that makes it practically impossible to function. But then, after the storm is done, once the snow starts to melt a little bit and then refreezes and everything is covered in ice, it is near impossible to function. So I found a solution. And this is not going to work for everybody, but it is a good thing to consider for yourself and to see how it's going to work best for you. So, over the last couple of years, when it is going to be bad weather out, we have to go down out onto the porch and down a set of steps to get to the yard. That is usually covered in ice. It is not good. So we've taken to covering it with tarps. And then when we need to go outside, we just peel it back real quick. Everybody walks down, cover it back up so that we prevent all of the precipitation from building on the steps and on the porch. And then we'll go out into the yard. So typically we don't have to worry too much about the stairs. We do have to worry about the yard. So I've taken the tarp theory and moved it out to my yard. And I don't cover the entire yard, just a section off of the walkway so that the problem we had last time was we would step off of the walkway into the yard and we would just hit this huge embankment of ice in every direction. There was no escaping it. And so we would slide and we fell and it was a whole thing. So I created just like a little arc around it. And during this last snowstorm, I actually went out, and while I was out with the dogs, I didn't go make special trips for this. But while we were out with the dogs, I would just then move it. Now with the tarp, I was able to just grab the corners and I would move it over to one side and I would scoop it up like a giant bag, and I would carry that snow and ice and throw it over the fence into the other side of our yard, not our neighbor's yard, our yard, out of our way. And so I cleared a lot of that snow before it built up and before it hardened into ice. I was able to keep a fairly clean area. And then I could just peel it up if we needed to let the dogs have a space to go potty. Or my dogs love to play most of my dogs love to play in the snow, so I just kind of let it be. And then I would use it for snow removal so that when it was going to melt later on, there wasn't enough there to create that hard, thick layer of ice that we would get hurt on. So I had the tarps, and then I would just systematically move them from areas to make sure I kept that a lower level of snow, ice, slush, debris, all of those things, and I was making easier for myself to clean up after the fact. Now, I will say this. When tarps get wet, they do slip, they do slide, so do not step on them if it's coming down because you could potentially get hurt. So make sure you peel that back or you leave yourself walkways to walk directly on the snow. But this really helped with snow removal because I could do it in the middle of the snowstorm. I didn't have to wait for it to finish. I didn't have to go and move the entire yard's worth of snow. I could just pick up that tarp, which was manageable. It wasn't too heavy for me because I could go out every so often with the girls and I could just toss it over the fence out of the way. And then I used a broom or a shovel to just kind of make some little paths to keep certain areas of the yard lower. I didn't remove it entirely because once the snow stops and it melts a little bit and then it refreezes, you do not just want it to be just ice. You want a little bit of snow for grip there. So I kept it manageable. I didn't remove it all, but I kept it manageable. And that allowed me to function in my yard and for my dogs to have a space where they wouldn't slip and slide because I have a senior dog now and I have puppies and I don't want anybody tearing anything or getting hurt. So using those tarps where we would typically enter into the yard and then to create little paths really was a game changer for us. So let me know, what ideas do you have for managing the snow out in the yard so that your pups can still take their bathroom breaks and you can still function without having to go overboard on this? Let me know in the comments below and follow along for more snow tips for pups.